Good evening. My name is Nikki Auger. This is my analytical research project for the Public Safety Administration capstone. The problem statement researched for this project is as follows. The best method to increase the civilian staff retention at the Charlotte County Jail in order to maintain a safer and reliable work environment. The Charlotte County Jail is a facility under the Bureau of Detention, a division of the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office. It is located in the city of Punta Gorda in Charlotte County, Florida. According to the 2020 annual report, Charlotte County is made up of 680.28 square miles of land and 178.02 square miles of waterway, and has a population of approximately 167,500 residents. The budget for the 2020 fiscal year, which runs from October 1st, 2021 to September 30th, 2022, was $24,832,644. The budget is proposed by the sheriff to the county commissioners and then approved by that board of county commissioners. The Charlotte County Jail is a direct supervision facility, which means that staff continuously interacts with the inmate population within the housing units and other areas of the jail. While the Sheriff's Office is run by Sheriff William Permel, the jail is overseen by a major. Currently, that is Major Norman Wilson, and he has two assistant commanders, Captain Tabitha Carter, who is over administration, and Captain Ryan Barber, who oversees operations. The facility can hold a maximum of 1,074 inmates. The detainees are held for the following agencies: Charlotte County Sheriff's Office, Punta Gorda Police Department, Florida Fish and Wildlife, Florida Highway Patrol, and the United States Marshal Service, and arrests made by neighboring law enforcement agencies such as the Lee County Sheriff's Office, Northport Police Department, and the DeSoto County Sheriff's Office. As of April 28th of 2022, the Bureau of Detention was allotted to employ 151 certified officers and 52 civilian staff members. However, at the time of researching this topic, the jail was employing 129 certified deputies and 33 civilians. Out of the 52 allotted civilian employees, the Charlotte County Jail is currently employing 33 civilians. This is a shortage of 19 civilian employees, which means that the civilian staff is operating at 64%. According to the Human Resources Director, Kevin Ostrowski, in the years between 2016 and 2021, there had been a loss of 31 civilian staff members. 20 resigned, leaving the agency, 8 were retired, and 3 had their appointments withdrawn by the sheriff. These losses do not include the members that have stayed with the agency, however transferred to other departments within the Sheriff's Office or had decided to become certified officers. With these 6 documented years, there is an average of 5 civilian staff losses per year, with 2018 having the highest number of resignations within one calendar year. The starting pay for civilian staff in the jail is approximately $16 per hour, that is $2,500 a month or $30,000 annually. The jail traditionally is used as an entry-level position for both civilian and certified personnel. There are many deputies who have interviewed to be road patrol officers, however, were given the 2-year promise, meaning they were offered a position to be a correctionals deputy first and then told that after 2 years they could transfer to be a road patrol officer. While not as popular, this is also true with civilians. Many civilians come to the jail to get their foot in the door with the mindset of doing my time and moving on. While civilian staff covers the post and intake, where they book, release, classify inmates, and hold inmate property, they make appointments and check in professional visitors. They do data entry, answer phones, and take care of patrons coming through the lobby. Civilian staff also cover support positions, such as the programs area, inmate financials, inmate laundry room, inmate mail, the warehouse, the kitchen staff, information technology, accreditation, intel analysis, and one administrative assistant position. When needed, the civilian staff is also the backups for the posts held by subcontractors when there is no coverage. These posts consist of the visitation center and control rooms. The first case study is titled Studying Relationships Between Job Satisfaction and Burnout. It explores the connection between job satisfaction and burnout with employees. This study did not cover employees in the corrections field. Instead, it covered burnout of HSE managers. However, the results are still the same with all employee levels, no matter what the occupation. According to the authors, job satisfaction is motivation to perform their job. The 9 job satisfaction motivators are salary, emotional opportunities, impartiality, respect and appreciation, recognition, nature, policies, management, work conditions, pay, and job security. Jobs are satisfying when the positive aspects of the job relate to the expectations, needs, and values of an individual requires to make them feel good about their work conditions. This is different for everyone, as everyone always wants something different for themselves. It was opinioned in the study that there is a link between job satisfaction and psychological factors along with physical and social relationships. This theory shows that unhappy coworkers are not necessarily unhappy with the job or tasks they are assigned, however, may be struggling with their surroundings or something outside of work. Burnout is defined by the authors as a psychological condition with symptoms and physical and emotional fatigue, as well as lack of motivation. Burnout is a reaction to chronic stress within the workplace or organization. The research on burnout first started with the first experiment taking place in 1970s. These studies started the phenomenon on burnout and how it caused physical and psychological illness, as well as increases in illegal drug use and divorce rates that would in turn reduce work production and the effects of the economy, as well as the organization in which the person worked for. In the 1980s, regular experiments were conducted to find what caused burnout. All studies conducted concluded that job dissatisfaction and burnout were connected, and that burnout was related to stress, social support, personal factors, personal worth, anxiety, emotional exhaustion, and fatigue. The second case study is titled Contribution Indicators of Work Stress and Employee Organizational Commitments Case Study. It also investigates the association between work stress and job satisfaction by using a sample of 150 people and collected data by questionnaires, interviews, groups, discussions, or collecting documentation. The study looked at 3 different commitment types: effective, continuity, and normative. Effective commitment is the level of income and job satisfaction, in other words, the emotional commitment from the employee to the organization. Continuity commitment is work passion and the hope for improvement in one's life. This will either encourage an employee to stay or leave the organization. Normative commitment is the reward throughout one's work time. The employee believes in the rules and policies by the organization and has a feeling of obligation to the company. The study first focuses on the different forms of job stress that an employee may face in the workplace. These stressors can either be physical or non-physical. The physical stressors are environmental, such as stuffy, noisy, hot, or cold environments, as well as having feelings of discomfort and insecurity. Non-physical stressors are social environments that are strict and suppress workers to engage with one another. This also includes a lack of career development and promotion with raises and salaries. This student agrees with the study that high stress will lead to lower job satisfaction, which will then lead to lower employee commitment to the organization. The study proposes that there are 6 categories of stress within the workplace: the pressure of time problems in the form of discrepancies between time and agreements with real time in the field, conflicts, namely incompatibility between job descriptions and competence, too much workload, anxiety about ignorance of work and fear of superiors, job character, and structure in the organization. The study also signifies the relationship between stress and motivation. Work stress can determine the level of motivation an employee will have. The results of this study prove the theories that work stress had negative impacts on the effective commitments, continuance commitment, and normative commitments alike. It was also concluded that organizations need to respond and focus on problems related to career development, leadership patterns, implementation of reward systems, allowing employees to participate in the decision-making processes to achieve common goals, and the disclosure of information from department heads to lower-level employees. The third case study is titled Factors Influencing Employee Satisfaction in the Police Service, the case of Slovenia. The purpose of this study was to examine employee satisfaction in the Slovenian Police Department and to then identify the group factors, effective, continuance, and normative commitments. This is the third case study that has proven that the relationships between upper management and subordinates are a key factor in employee satisfaction and plays a key role in retaining staff. The study was started just before the Slovenian public sector announced money-saving measures and just prior to the police service employees going on strike. Due to the strike that took place in the Slovenian Police Department, this study could present a good indicator as to why the strike took place and what can be done to avoid similar strikes in the future. The questionnaire provided had 24 questions that focused on relationships with leaders, income and safety, duties and working conditions, and total satisfaction. The most satisfied areas were the environment itself with working times, place, and a sense of belonging. Due to Slovenia being a poor country, it is imperative to find ways to boost employee job satisfaction in non-financial ways. Non-financial methods to boost employee job satisfaction can be found by strengthening relationships among peers and leaders by conducting team builder exercises, giving praise when it is appropriate, and allowing participation in decision-making, trade union support, psychohygienic care, and decreased bureaucraticism. At the conclusion of this study, it was suggested that the study should be repeated every 2 years to find the trends among the organization and employee satisfaction. This is a wonderful suggestion to keep track of the changes to see if the changes are working to boost employee satisfaction within the workplace and to see if the non-financial suggestions are successful. The first literature review article is called Satisfied Correctional Staff, a review of the literature on the correlates of correctional staff job satisfaction. This article starts off by defining job satisfaction as an emotional reply by an employee concerning their role in an agency or organization. That emotional response results the overall evolution of definite results with those that are expected, needed, wanted, desired, or alleged to be unbiased or fair. This article also coincides with the case study that positive behaviors are linked to high levels of job satisfaction and vice versa, that of negative behaviors such as turnover and absenteeism are linked to low levels of job satisfaction. The article states there are two approaches to measuring job satisfaction: faceted and global. The faceted approach measures job satisfaction of the job task and has narrowed focus on job satisfaction. This includes work performance, wage and benefit satisfaction, promotional opportunities, and relationships with peers and supervisors. Global measures of job satisfaction permit individual workers to decide what tasks are more important to them, which will allow them to arrive at their own level of mental job satisfaction. The global measures approach is the most used to measure job satisfaction within the studies of correctional staff. The study includes those workers that are custodial workers and non-custodial workers. Custodial workers are those certified by the state to work directly with inmates and detainees within a prison or jail. Non-custodial workers are those that work to assist in the operations of the facility and the supervision of the inmates and detainees. Job satisfaction variables include personal characteristics and work environment. Personal characteristics include areas such as background in education and upbringing, demographics like age, gender, race, and ethnicity, current situational aspects like marriage, children, and tenure, as well as other domains like religion, total family income, and travel distance to and from work. Work environment characteristics include tangible and intangible aspects of the workplace with work conditions and situations. These characteristics of the work environment include centralization characteristics such as financial rewards, integration, legitimacy, and mobility, work and job stressors such as role stressors, job autonomy, decision-making participation, and promotional opportunities. The article concludes that there are both positive and negative outcomes of job satisfaction. The second article is titled The Issue of Control in Jail, The Effects of Professionalism, Detainee Control, and Administrative Support on Job Stress, Job Satisfaction, and Organizational Commitment Among Jail Staff. The article first and foremost explains how jails are understudied and that their environments are more unique than prisons because of the diversity among the inmate population, the health issues associated with those inmates, and the lack of training among the staff in dealing with the wide range of diversity within the inmate population. The authors of this article surveyed a county correctional facility larger than the Charlotte County Jail, located in Orlando, Florida, however did not mention it by name. Prisons are filled with those who have been sentenced for crimes they committed, usually felonies, and the sentences are for periods longer than 1 year. Jails, on the other hand, are filled usually with those offenders who have not been found guilty of committing alleged crimes and are waiting for trials to start or wanting to accept plea bargains. Jail detainees also consist of those who have violated their probation or paroles and are waiting further decision from the court system on how the offender will finish their previous sentence. If guilty, inmates are sentenced to less than 1 year of time inside a jail facility for crimes that are felony and or misdemeanor offenses. Other than inmates waiting for sentencing, jail inmates are usually less healthy than prison inmates with mental illness, infectious disease, and addictions. Studies have shown that job stress is linked to health issues, social issues, marital and other family problems, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, decrease in job performance, absenteeism, tardiness, turnover, and death. Jail administrators will be inept to make informed decisions or make changes to the work environment unless they can identify the factors within the work environment that relate to the job stress that their staff is feeling. Those members who have the high level of organization commitment tend to have positive staff behaviors as they want the organization to do well and will put their best foot forward to help achieve that goal. They will proudly let everyone know they work for that organization, are proud of their job duties. Members with low organizational commitment have no intent to affiliate themselves with the organization and practice bad work behaviors such as tardiness, absenteeism, and turnover. They do not care about the outcome of the organization and the people who work there. The third literature review was a review of the Florida Department of Corrections Volunteer Manual. The volunteer manual was very insightful as whom they allow to volunteer within the facilities, as they allow both inmates within the facility to volunteer as well as outside community volunteers. The Florida Department of Corrections is the state department that controls 128 state prison facilities across the state of Florida, which includes major institutions, annexes, work camps, re-entry centers, forestry camps, training camps, and work release centers. They have programs for academics education, special education, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, chaplaincy, faith and character-based programs, library services, mentoring, office helpers, self-betterment programs, wellness programs, transition skills, tutoring, veteran services, vocational training, youthful offender services, and an inside program mandatory for all detainees called Thinking for a Change. While there are definite security aspects that must be acknowledged when allowing volunteers into the facility and allowing detainees to assist in certain areas of the facility, we cannot make the facilities completely closed off from those who want to help and can be cleared to work inside the facility. The fourth article reviewed is titled Volunteer Reliability in Nonprofit Organizations, a Theoretical Model. This article expresses the reliability issues with employing volunteers within nonprofit organizations. As jails are funded by funds received by the county government, this researcher felt it was a great comparison between the two. The article defines the volunteer reliability as the completion of assignments and delivers the components that they agree to the organization. In 2015, there were 62.6 million volunteers that donated 7.9 billion hours, which contributed to $184 billion to the economy. The main issue expressed within the article is that volunteers' lack of commitment to the organization in which they volunteer for. Volunteers can decide on their own how, where, and what time to perform duties and activities for the organization and can easily withdraw from the organization if their personal needs are not being met. These volunteer absences then force the managers to run around and find coverage elsewhere due to that absenteeism. There are many factors that need to be thought about and discussed prior to bringing on volunteers in any organization, as volunteer reliability is key, as well as the psychological balance and the sociological developments of not only each volunteer, but of the organization as well. Psychological balance refers to the balance between the psychological contact or perception made between two parties and the psychological breaches or discrepancies felt with either party if the original agreement and what is being delivered. There are four categories of psychological balance: mutual high obligations, mutual low obligations, organization over obligation, and organization under obligation. First, it allows people to help others in need and contribute to society. Second, it allows people to either learn new skills or practice existing ones. Third, it gives people the ability to be social and meet new people. Fourth, volunteering can provide business contacts and boost resumes. Fifth, it provides people the ability to feel good about themselves and not feel guilty about being more fortunate than others. And lastly, it is a way for people to stay busy away from their own problems. Sociological development refers to the nature in volunteering. The last article was titled Mental Health and Trauma Among Incarcerated Persons, Development of a Training Curriculum for Correctional Officers. The number of incarcerated mentally ill persons is increasing. The results of a survey conducted in 2004 and 2005 show that there were 3 times more mentally ill persons incarcerated than there were in hospitals. A similar study that was conducted in 2014 showed that number of mentally ill incarcerated persons was climbing, and the severity of the mental illnesses was also increasing. 95% of jails claim to have serious mentally ill detainees, and with a third of the jail staff having substantial involvement in the management of those inmates with limited training. These statistics brought attention to the Mental Health American Organization, in which they responded with a statement defending the rights of the mentally ill who are incarcerated and the need to train staff in mental illness among prisoners. Inmates with mental illness are also vulnerable to suicidal and self-harming behaviors, as well as prone to bullying, exclusion, and victimization. Not protecting the mentally ill while incarcerated can lead to legal liability on behalf of the correctional facility and staff members on watch. There are currently educational and training tools for social workers, public health workers, nurses, psychology professionals, and facility administrators. There, however, is no education or training available for the frontline workers, such as correctional officers and civilian staff members that work firsthand with incarcerated persons that may have a mental illness. Having training available to all correctional staff would educate how staff can address and refer inmates with mental disorders for treatment as early as possible by using evidence-based and collective models. The first alternative is to improve the relationships among all detention staff within the correctional facility. Based on what this student has read in 3 case studies and 2 literature reviews, it is understood that the relationships between all staff within the correctional facility must improve. This includes relationships among peers, as well as relationships between the ranks of the workers, middle management and upper management, and even between the certified and non-certified staff within the facility. The separation between staff contributes to low job satisfaction and brings a sense of hostility to the workplace. The chain of communication is probably one of the hardest obstacles that upper management must overcome to establish a better rapport with staff and to provide a better understanding of what their vision is for the Bureau. Mending and improving the relationships among the organizational staff members will bear no financial burden on the fixed annual budget for the jail. The second alternative is regarding the use of volunteers. The Charlotte County Jail already uses volunteers within the program's area under the Support Services Department. Volunteers come in and teach faith-based and skilled classes to the inmate population for free. However, there are no volunteers to assist civilian staff with the everyday clerical duties that help run the operations of the correctional facility. The clerical duties that would benefit from volunteers consist, but are not limited to, answering phones, transferring phone calls, answering the lobby window, directing and checking in visitors, and some clerical office duties. Answering the phone alone would help civilian staff significantly, as the phone is continuously ringing with the attorneys calling to speak to clients, bondsmen calling to verify bonds, and patrons calling for various reasons. Volunteers would also be useful in the hydroponic and fish farm under the jail's support services. These two farms help feed the inmates of the jail. Volunteers would be able to assist with the farms outside of the normal hours when the inmate workers are working on the farm during the week. Volunteers could consist of not only adults but also high school students looking to receive volunteer hours for college scholarships. The third alternative to increase pay for civilians and provide special risk retirements through the Florida retirement system. According to the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office homepage on June 12, 2022, the current starting pay for a civilian intake clerk is $33,128 annually, which is just under $16 per hour. This is under the cost of living for Charlotte County, according to the living wage calculator from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that states that one adult working with no children should make approximately $33,979 annually prior to taxes. The Florida retirement system, retirement definitions, and guidelines are determined by the Florida state statute. Currently, civilian staff working in the Charlotte County Jail are eligible for retirements through the FRS as regular class retirements with a total of 6.3% contributions. There is a class of retirement called Special Risk Administrative Retirement with a total contribution of 7.95%. That is for those correctional employees whose job tasks and responsibilities involve direct contact with the inmate population. However, it excludes clerical staff and secretaries. The civilian staff within the Charlotte County Jail, while performing most clerical tasks, does involve direct contact with the inmate population, many times without certified staff around for safety. The civilian staff not only books and releases inmates on their own, but also classifies, notarizes paperwork, and escorts them through the halls from one location within the facility to another. Some civilians even supervise inmates while they are working with no certified staff in view. To exclude the civilians from high-risk retirements is unethical, as they are working in the same environment, in the same work conditions as certified staff. Lastly, civilian staff should be given the same training opportunities as certified staff when dealing with inmates. A key focus right now among the county is mental health among all citizens. According to the literature review by DeHart, there are more than 3 times more persons with mental illness incarcerated within jails and prisons than there are in hospitals. It is for this reason that we see more and more training being provided to law enforcement and correctional officers. Mental health illnesses are not only affecting the inmate population, but it also affects our peers and coworkers. All members working within law enforcement and corrections should have access to mental health training to recognize the warning signs and provide help to those who need it. In Charlotte County, the Charlotte Behavioral Health Center has partnered with other members of the community to help assist in training local law enforcement personnel in mental health, substance disorders, as well as providing resources and environmental concerns for those in need of help. Because many of the mentally ill and substance abusers are arrested and brought to the county jail, many of the detention members sign up for the CIT class. However, there are times when a civilian member could be interviewing a detainee for booking purposes, updating classification statuses, or notarizing paperwork, and a mental health issue could arise. In these situations, the civilian staff is not trained to use or know how to use proper CIT. They would need to call over the radio for assistance and wait until help arrives. Training civilian staff would be very useful as detainees typically have a better attitude towards civilian members, as detainees do not see them as cops and are more willing to talk to them as they know civilians are not permitted to use force on them. Providing civilian staff with CIT training could also be the difference between saving a life within the time it takes to talk to someone down to the time it takes for help to arrive. Quantitative analysis is used to find the best alternative to potentially solve a problem. It uses numbers and/or graphs to test theories and establish facts about the subject matter. The best methods for analyzing quantitative data are Excel, SPSS or R, and they are used to calculate averages, the number of times an answer was given, correlation between two or more variables, and provide reliability and validity of the results. For this research paper, 4 alternatives were compared to determine which was the best solution to the issue of increasing civilian staff retention at the Charlotte County Jail in order to maintain a safer and reliable work environment. 4 groups of people were asked 11 questions each and provided a scale to rate the questions. Interviewed was a legal representative, a financial expert, 15 civilian county jail employees, and 15 residents of Charlotte County who are taxpayers of the community who could be affected by the decisions made by the agency. The legal representative interviewed for this project was Terry Cochran. He was asked 11 questions and asked to rate those questions on a scale from 5 to 0. 5 having no legal restrictions at any level. 4 had some legal restrictions, however, at the agency level, usually requiring a rule or policy change. 3 had some legal restrictions, usually at the county or city level, requiring a change to ordinances. 2 again had some legal restrictions, usually an administrative code that requires action by a state or federal regulator agency to amend. 1 also had some legal restrictions, usually a federal title or state law that requires legislative action or court action to amend or change. And 0 meaning there were absolute legal restrictions with either federal or state constitutional prevention. The financial representative interviewed for this project was Geo Orby. She was asked 11 questions and asked to rate those questions on a scale from 5 to 1. 5 has no financial restrictions with sufficient funds existing for the alternative. 4 had some financial restrictions, usually requiring the internal moving of funding from one source to another, requiring outside government approval, either a city manager, city council, county commission, or legislation. A score of 3 had some financial restrictions, usually requiring the addition of new funding source to be added to the organization's budget from outside existing sources without requiring any new taxation. 2 had some financial restrictions, usually requiring the addition of a new funding source to be added to the organization's budget from additional revenue sources requiring new taxation. A score of 1 had financial restrictions as no money would exist for the project, nor would new money be sought for approval. The organizational group consisted of 15 civilian staff members from the Charlotte County Jail. These members ranged in age and consisted of both male and female sexes. Each was asked 11 questions and asked to rate those questions on a scale from 5 to 0. It should be noted that each question was asked providing how it was answered by the legal and financial experts. A score of 5 had a positive impact on organizational personnel with no negative consequences. A score of 4 had a positive impact on organizational personnel with only a slight or small impact of negative consequences. A score of 3 had a positive impact on organizational personnel that has an equal negative impact. A score of 2 has a positive impact on organizational personnel, however, has a greater amount of negative impact. A score of 1 has no positive impact to the organizational personnel, and a score of 0 has no positive impact to organizational personnel and instead creates a negative impact. The political group consisted of 15 residents of Charlotte County. These residents ranged in age and consisted of both male and female sexes. Each was asked 11 questions and asked to rate those questions on a scale from 5 to 0. It should be noted that each question was asked providing how it was answered by the legal and financial experts. A score of 5 has a positive political impact on the service jurisdiction with no negative consequences to the organization. A score of 4 had a positive political impact on the service jurisdiction with only a slight or small impact of negative consequences to the organization. A score of 3 also had a positive political impact on the service jurisdiction with significant negative consequences to the organization. A score of 2 had some positive political impact to the service population and no positive political impact for the organization. A score of 1 also has no positive political impact to the service population and no positive political impact for the organization. Lastly, a score of 0 had no positive political impact to the service population and instead creates a negative impact. In order to determine the best alternative, a spreadsheet was created as seen in the slide. Each question criteria is listed with the scores of the legal, financial, organizational, and political categories. The category scores were added individually and then added together for the total points. The total points for each category could be no more than 55, and the total points for the alternative not exceeding 220. As we see here on this slide, for Alternative 1 had a legal score of 55, a financial score of 33, organizational score of 40, and political score of 42, with a total point score of 170. This slide provides one example of the questions asked of the legal expert Terry Cochran. As shown, this was the discussion based on Alternative 1, Legal Category Question 6. The following questions was presented to Terry Cochran. Based on the organization's existing policies and the problem statement in relation to relevant state and federal employment laws, what are the legal ramifications to implement Alternative 1, which states, improve relationships among all detention staff? The legal expert, Terry Cochran, stated there would be no legal restrictions at any level when trying to improve office relationships. Based on this response from Terry Cochran, I weighted this score a 5. Here we have one example of the question asked of the financial expert, Geo Orby. As shown, this was the discussion based on Alternative 4, Financial Category Question 10. The following question was presented to Geo Orby. Based on the organization's human resource policy regarding proper staffing to include the negative impact of job-related stresses regarding Alternative 4, what are the financial ramifications to implement Alternative 4, which states, provide additional training for handling inmates with mental illness? The financial expert Geo Orby stated there would be some financial restrictions, usually requiring the addition of a new funding source to be added to the organization's budget from additional revenue sources, requiring new taxation when trying to increase training on the handling of inmates with mental illness for civilian staff. Based on this response from Geo Orby, I weighted this score a 2. This slide provides one example of the questions asked of 15 civilian employees of the Charlotte County Jail. As shown, this was the discussion based on Alternative 2, Organizational Category Question 9. The question presented was, Alternative 2 is designed to utilize volunteers within the jail. The alternative will impact the organization's emergency and/or strategic plans, addressing mitigation and response to natural disasters, as it will require a rule or policy change through vote or decision and will require new funding to be added to the organization's budget, requiring additional taxation to the citizens of Charlotte County. Based on this knowledge, are you in support or not in support of this alternative as it relates to the organization's emergency and/or strategic plans addressing mitigation and response, including threats? Of the 15 surveys I conducted, 4 were in support, 7 were indifferent, and 4 were not in support of this alternative. Based on this information, I weighted this a 3. This slide provides one example of the questions asked of 15 Charlotte County residents. As shown, this was the discussion based on Alternative 1, Political Category Question 2. The question presented was, Alternative 1 is designed to improve the relationships among all detention staff. It does not propose any public policy change to the agency as its relationships, nor does it require additional taxation to the citizens of Charlotte County, Florida. Based on this knowledge, are you in support or not in support of this alternative as it relates to the proposed policy changes? Of the 15 surveys I conducted, 13 were in support and 2 were not in support of this alternative. Based on this information, I weighted this a 4. The quantitative and comparative analysis conducted for this analytical research project concluded that the best alternative for the best method to increase the civilian staff retention at the Charlotte County Jail to maintain a safer and reliable work environment was Alternative 1, with a total of 170 points out of a possible 220 points. As a reminder, Alternative 1 was to improve the relationships among all detention staff. The least possible alternative was Alternative 2, utilizing volunteers within the corrections facility with a total of 143 points. To implement the best alternative, Alternative 1, improving the relationships among all detention staff, 3 steps must be met. First is to create and develop a policy and procedure for the members of the Bureau of Detention to follow. To create a policy and procedure within the Bureau of Detention, a policy must first be developed and created. Creation and development of policies typically start with the watch commanders, also known as the lieutenants. All policies for the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office are placed into the policy management system called PowerDMS. In PowerDMS, the newly created policy can be passed up through the chain of command for further changes and development to make the policy the most effective version of itself before getting to the highest level of approval, the sheriff. Prior to the sheriff signing off on the proposed policy, the policy is presented at a meeting before the Policy Review Board. The Policy Review Board consists of the upper command staff, captains, majors, and the undersheriff and the sheriff, Professional Compliance Department, Finance Department, Human Resources, and Legal Departments. These departments together make sure that the policy follows all laws so that individual rights are not infringed upon. Failure to make sure that a policy follows the law can hold the agency liable for lawsuits and/or hefty fines. To ensure that each member has received the new or updated policy, we refer to PowerDMS. Each member of the Sheriff's Office has access and an account with PowerDMS. PowerDMS is used by all personnel to sign off on new or updated policies and procedures. By each member of the Bureau of Detention signing off on a new policy, each member is held accountable for not only following the policy, but also going to their supervisors and asking questions if there is something they require clarification on. Signing off on any policy states that the member understands the policy or procedure and that they agree to follow it. The second step to providing training for the civilian and certified members of the Bureau of Detention and to have each member sign off on policy. Once the policy is signed by the sheriff, it is up to the training division to make sure all members of the Bureau of Detention are given the proper training and information needed to ensure that the policy is being followed. This can include a class with lecture, a PowerPoint presentation, or an online video. PowerDMS tracks the signing off on policies and procedures. During the COVID-19 pandemic, PowerDMS was a great tool utilized to conduct the required semi-annual block trainings as in-person classes were suspended to keep all personnel safe and healthy. Lastly, command staff must ensure that members of the Bureau of Detention understand the training that was provided. After each method of policy distribution, a short test or quiz can be conducted to ensure that the attendees understand the training they just received, or to make a less stressful situation, a group question and answer could take place. These quizzes or tests can be conducted in the training class or can be provided in PowerDMS and completed later after the training. Power DMS not only tracks the signing off on policies and procedures, but can also track the administration of tests and quizzes and the passing or failing of those quizzes. Once the completion of creating and developing a new policy, providing notice and training of the new policy, and ensuring that all personnel receive and understand the training, will this new policy be active and go into effect. The process can be time-consuming. However, when done properly, it can be extremely successful for the agency as a whole and may even bring insight to other bureaus or departments within the agency to follow suit. Once the new policy and procedure has been implemented, it is necessary to conduct an evaluation to determine its accomplishment and effectiveness. The proper timeline for such an evaluation is between 18 to 24 months after completion of the training. Evaluation of the policy will allow for command staff, specifically the sheriff, to see if this new policy and procedure is working or not. Currently, we have seen a nationwide drop in the hiring of personnel within corrections and law enforcement. This decline can skew the results in the evaluation of retaining civilian staff within the Detention Bureau. To fully understand the success or failure of the new policy, surveys and interviews should be conducted not only with civilian staff, but with certified staff as well, as they are also subjects whose relationships are being tested. Policies are reviewed annually by command staff and the Policy Review Board for possible updates. Annual reviews of policy are needed due to the ever-changing societal needs and changes in norms. For policies that have successful outcomes during the evaluation, retention, and continuation will be subject to updates to suit the needs of the personnel of the agency. There are numerous ways in which the evaluation of improving the relationships among all detention staff has succeeded or failed. One way to evaluate the policy is to have the staff inspector tour the detention facility and speak to the individual employees. Another method is by conducting a survey through Power DMS that the employees will need to fill out and submit. The evaluation can also be conducted by using both methods and then comparing the results. As we conducted a qualitative survey between the alternatives for this paper, the same can be conducted to find if the best alternative is sustainable for the agency. For those policies that have a negative impact, they are not discarded. Instead, they can remain as policies by being updated and tweaked with their views in mind, benefiting the needs of the agency and its personnel. However, if alternative one, improving the relationships among all detention staff, continued to be a failure and not have the positive impact that was hoped, it would be of the best interest to move to the next best alternative. In this case, that would be alternative 3, increase the starting pay and provide high-risk retirements for the civilian detention staff. The process of implementing the policy and evaluating the policy after 18 to 24 months would repeat. If the policy was a failure, then the process would be completed with the next highest alternative and continue in such manner with the remaining alternatives. If all 4 alternatives were found to be failures, then new ideas and alternatives to improve civilian retention within the Bureau of Detention would need to be developed. Thank you for your time.